Order. Please join me in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The board met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting for two topics. Number one, to consider the purchase or lease of real estate property. And number two, for an educational informational session with our solicitor on the topic of right to know. The first thing, looking for a motion to approve the agenda for this evening, the regular board meeting incorporating all additions and deletions.
So moved. I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Maris, and second, Mr. Donato. All in favor?
In favor.
Is Pat and Richard on?
Pat and Richard are both on, I believe. Pat, are you there?
Yes, I'm in favor. If you can hear me.
You there? Pat?
Yep, I'm here. Hello.
There we go.
I'm in favor.
In favor.
Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Next, a motion to approve the following minutes as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Keener.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Maris. All in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. And at this moment, I turn the meeting over to Mr. Bomerski. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to start off, I was going to do this at the superintendent piece, but just we have here student staff recognition. I just want to start off and thank all of our staff and students alike. It has been an absolutely wonderful start to the school year. So just a major thank you to everybody at all levels of the organization, staff, students. You really did an amazing job coming back to school, and it's been absolutely wonderful. So major kudos there. And also want to welcome, we have Avery and Drew here from the student council. So Avery, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello. So I'm Avery, I'm the president, and this is Drew. He is the treasurer. And our other members are currently doing sports right now, so they are not here. But we're super excited for the school year, and I'm excited to see where we're gonna go.
Can I ask you a question, Avery?
Yes,
Are you the quarterback again this year?
I am the quarterback.
All
for
right.
volleyball. Yes,
Do you have receivers that will be able to catch your balls?
we do. We were working on it tonight.
Avery has a shotgun arm, by the
He
way.
does. Encourage you to come to Powder Puff. Yep. All right, so that's from a recognition standpoint. Mr. Wright, I'll turn it back to you for residents' request.
The board provides a time of public comment for residents and taxpayers to bring their thoughts to the board, but it's not a time for exchange between the board administration and the speaker. We ask the speakers refrain from identifying specific students, staff, or community members by name. Residents and taxpayers who are interested in making public comments must complete the electronic registration form prior to 3 p.m. on this day of the meeting. And you get 5 minutes during your time, which will be kept on the clocks on the wall tonight. I'll give this to Mike. Thanks.
All right, our first and only speaker this evening is Stacy Hernandez.
Good evening. Tonight I have the opportunity to speak with you about something very special, Constitution Day, September 17th on Sunday. This is approaching quickly. This year, our local chapter of Moms for Liberty Lancaster chapter has joined to help 917 Society to bring each 8th grade student in our public schools across the county their very own copy of the great United States Constitution. Correspondence regarding deliveries has already gone out, and we do hope that you accept this gift from us. The chapter is very excited to be providing this service to you and promoting our civic and social welfare. Tonight, I would also like to offer the opportunity for somber reflections as we consider the current state of our nation. The opportunity is afforded to us by law to help save this great nation, to consider both your past choices in the opportunities you held while seated as a school board members, or the great opportunities many of you will have going forward after the election. It has become readily apparent to all those researching the current state of our schools that the sudden and dramatic cultural changes are the direct result of neo-Marxist attacks on this nation. Every dictator in modern history has come from the children through the schools prior to the falling of a nation. We are seeing this on American soil now. The question is, for those of you who are leaving office, what have you done during this most precious time to reverse the course and save America? Moreover, for those of you who are staying on, what will you do with the opportunity that's afforded to you in the near future? We do have a legal mandate, federal Section 111 of Public Law 108447, Item B, which states that each school that receives federal funding will teach the Constitution on this day. Moreover, PA State Statute 24, Section 7-711D states that even beyond just the single date, a full period can be devoted each week for the purpose of affirming and developing allegiance to and respect for the flag of the United States of America, and from promoting clear understanding of our American way of life. With all the unparalleled individual opportunities in our Republican form of government, with responsiveness to majority's decisions and demands. Such elements shall be included in the programs as instructions in the fundamental principles of our form of government, and understanding of the provisions of the Constitution and Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the Constitution and the United States of America. The value to be found in the freedom and the speech of religion and of the press, and the values to be found in obedience to the laws of the land of the Commonwealth. The importance of exercising the rights of franchise, the obligation of every citizen to stand ready to defend our country at all times from infiltration or aggression by those who have acts of ideology are contrary to the American philosophy of life. Moms for Liberty Lancaster gladly gave these constitutions to help you fulfill your federal mandate, and we also ask that you deeply consider exercising your empowered and expanded options under the PA statutes in this most critical time for our nation. On a different subject, now that we are heading into normal flu and cold seasons, that when the next virus appears, that we remember all that we have fought for and for the freedoms of choice of not wearing masks or wearing masks, unethical quarantines, testing, and school closures. Remember, a health mandate is not always a law. Also, as a nurse, I simply reminder of parents that if a child is feeling sick, to keep them home to get better and not to spread what they have to other students. I have recently kept my child home for this very reason. I want to thank you all for all the hard work that you do and the dedication to our children. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the residents speaking. Thank you. And I turn it over to Mr. Bormuski.
Thank you. As I started off at the beginning, recognizing our students and staff for an amazing start to the school year. Just want to give a few updates. Over last couple of weeks, but also moving forward, we have our back to school night. So I'm hoping that parents and guardians have the opportunity to come in, get to meet their child's teacher, get to hear what's happening in the schools and in the classroom, and become an active volunteer in the school through the course of the upcoming school year. This coming Thursday, the 14th, at the Barnstormer Stadium, it is Hempfield School District Spirit Night there. So we're hoping to see a large crowd. We were told last year by the Barnstormers, while they did this in all districts, that our school night was the most popular night for the Barnstormers. So we're hoping to replicate that again. It was a great evening. It was also referenced with regards to Constitution Day coming up. I want to thank the individuals who brought the constitutions for our students here to the admin building. I do have them. They are from the 917 Society, a nonpartisan group, but their goal is to get the pocket constitution in all hands of 8th graders across the country. It is an exact replica of the language of the Constitution. And so we do appreciate thinking, for our students and getting these resources. So we'll be making those available to our students. We also have coming up, it was also mentioned, So thank you for mentioning, with regards to any student or staff member that alike not feeling well, please keep your child home. Our teachers and staff will work with you and your child to make sure that they get caught up. There is no need to send a child to school when they're sick. That is not good for the child nor anybody else. At the same time, I also want to acknowledge we have a lot of fall sports and extracurricular activities going on. So I would encourage our community to come out and support our students, cheer them on in a variety of settings, and see the great things that are happening. We also know that this time of year, a lot of times there's questions that arise as to what's happening in schools or in classes, or I heard this, or what about this? So I encourage individuals to go directly to the source. If you have a question, go to your child's teacher, ask them what the question, they will get you that answer. You don't have to kind of shop around for that question. Just go right to them. They'll absolutely provide that answer. And also for our board members, our business office has been working very closely with the auditors who are in. You have at your seats a copy of letter from the auditor that just outlines basically the role, the scope, and then any potential significant risks. Not that there is an issue, but they are things that they look at when they look at the size of our district, that they need to check things, for example, like payroll. We're a large district, so they always look at payroll to make sure that things are being processed correctly. So that's what they define as a potential risk. So you do have that document from our auditor, Kim, and her team over here. If you have any questions about the letter, you can certainly contact Kim or reach out to Mrs. Hall to talk through that. But it has been going very smooth. Mrs. Hall, anything you want to share on that? They sit in the conference room. You really don't even know they're here. So I really applaud our team for all the great work they've done to get ready and prepared to be able to have the auditor do the necessary work. And they are hoping to have everything completed. I believe I read in here by approximately November 30th. The only other things that I have, you have the calendar of events, and we also have the September district enrollment counts. And so every first of the month, new enrollment counts are generated, and we do send them out to you, but we also put them here in board docs for your review. That's all I have from an update standpoint, unless there's any questions for me.
I just want to put in a plug as a parent. I went to the LIC open house, which was 2 weeks ago or something like that, and it was fantastic. So I put in for the staff and Dr. Decker. They did a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. And thank you again for joining me on the first day and getting around to all the buildings. And I've been in all the buildings at least twice so far, and it's very smooth. So again, compliments to our staff. Well done, job well done.
For the board members, I am working with another tour agency to arrange the next visitation, which will come up sometime the end of this month, October.
Mr. Byrd, back to you.
Terrific. This evening, I do have a president's report, and it's in comparison to what I've had so far, going to be a little bit lengthy, and I'm going to do my best to not get emotional, but I guess it's been 10 months since I became board president, and I'm approaching the end of the term that I was brought in as president. And like the other board members, I'm a resident of the community and a parent in the community with children in the school district when they graduated. And over my time, when I arrived in 2004, I became very forged with a lot of the community as an athletic coach and various volunteer situations. And unfortunately, the last 10 months has been a significant amount of people connected to our community and our school that have lost their lives and impacted their children. So I'm going to go in order, and most of you or some of you will know these people, but I'd like to mention them, and then I'll tie that together at the end. 33 years ago, Larry Fisher, 1990, became a HAMS, which is Hempfield Association of Midget Sports football coach. And over those years, he became the director and then the Red Rose League director, and his children were raised, and he continued to do that and volunteer all his time to, I couldn't even tell you how many kids over those years. And he was there from the beginning and the end of every practice and every single game. He would set up, he did the trash at the end. And unexpectedly, after going for a routine checkup, finding out he had heart problem, actually died after surgery, December 2nd. He was so embraced by the community that it was standing room only at the church. They tried to find the largest venue they could. And it was a celebration of life. He was a wonderful person that was taken from us too early. Moving on to May 12th, Terry Fickus, who was a local plumber, passed away unexpectedly at age 62. His son, which I did get approval from all the families to mention their names because I think it's important for connection. His son, Cameron Fickus, it was the evening before his senior prom. And 12 days before his senior graduation, in which I got the opportunity to hand him his diploma, which was very meaningful. They came to our district when Cameron was in 5th grade. He was a wrestler, youth sports athlete, but eventually high school wrestler, accomplished one. And his father was also the scorebook keeper at all the matches for 4 years, in which he did for free, and that is a paid position. He also traveled with the team to all the locations that we traveled to, as far as Virginia and actually Florida in the off season. Moving on next, shortly after that, on June 5th, Tim Shorter passed away at age 54. The Friday night before Memorial Day weekend, 2 days after graduation, I believe, he had a heart attack in the stands at the All-Star football game. His son, Aiden, which is his 3rd son, was in the game. It was such a, I don't have the right word, but it was so overwhelming that they actually had to stop the game, and they did not complete the game. The game was finished there. He went on to the hospital, and after several days of fighting his life, he didn't make it. Tim was another volunteer to our community, worked for a dozen or so years as the Mountville football director and a coach, 6 adopted kids with his wife, Nancy, that all came through our school district, one of which, Isaiah, struggled with brain cancer for like 3 years, in which the community embraced him and raised money to help that family come to that miracle where Isaiah still comes to the games now. And finally, I know there might be other people, but the last person I'm going to bring up, which is the toughest one I'm struggling with, is Robert Doyle, which we all knew as RJ. Sorry. Sunday, I think it was August 27th, he was riding down the Fruitville Pike on his motorcycle at 8:30 at night, and a car ran the stop sign on Lidditz Road. And somehow he survived and was brought to the hospital. We were all contacted between 2 and 6 a.m. And 2 of his kids, one just graduated, and I handed him his diploma at graduation, Gavin, and his son Grayson, who's on the football team. They were in the hospital, and it was deemed on Monday that he was brain dead. And we had just seen each other for the first time in a year at the football game Friday night. He had just put an offer on a house on Sunday that he was going to buy with his girlfriend. And after several days of hoping for a prayer would come true, they had to make a decision to take him off life support. Well, this is an amazing story, because I came from South Carolina and have a whole network of friends down there that have kind of brought together with my friend group up here. And I had a friend in South Carolina, his name's Paul Mad Dog Madden, with 3 children and a wife. And he's been looking for a kidney for a year. He got multiple myeloma 5 years ago. And that cancer, although he's in remission now, had destroyed his kidneys. And Gavin and Grayson graciously wrote the gift of life to Paul Madden in Charleston, South Carolina, that was waiting for a kidney. And it had to be an exact match, and 1 in a million chance of that happening, but it still puts him at the top of the list. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I got that message that it was in fact the exact match. And they flew that kidney down to Charleston, South Carolina, and Paul and RJ had never met. I connected the families through pictures. And Paul went home on Tuesday. And the terminology that's used is the kidney is awake, so that means it's functioning in his body. And it's truly a miracle. Part of RJ will always live in Paul. And the boys have some way of closing that their father had a purpose besides what just occurred to them. So the reason I bring all this up, yesterday was 22-year anniversary of the attacks on our country. The trade centers, the Pentagon, Flight 93, that without those heroes would have impacted another destination that we're unsure of. When that occurred, everybody pulled together despite their differences. That's what's happened in Hempfield through all these tragic things I've been involved in. It didn't matter, whether you're on school board or what your ideology is or what you think someone's intentions are. Everybody at that point just realized they loved one another and wanted to be there for each other, even if we disagreed. I'd like to take a few minutes for a silent moment to remember all the first responders, the heroes, the family members, the folks I mentioned previously. Remember that we're here together despite having many times a significant different opinions. Remind that we all need to work together and assume that we all have the best interests of our community. So if you could just close your eyes for a minute. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. We stand and have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. I appreciate everybody's time on that. We will move on to representative and adjunct reports. Mr. Keener, Lancaster County Career and Technology.
Thank you, Mr. Barr, and thank you for that moving tribute on behalf of all of us. The Joint Operating Committee met on Thursday, August 24th. It was a routine meeting in all respects. I have the agenda if anyone, or the minutes if anyone wants them. Probably the biggest thing to note was we did appoint a new business manager, so we were thankful to be able to fill that critical position very quickly. So we do have a new business manager at the Career and Technology Center. The next meeting will be September 28th at the Mount Joy campus.
Thank you, Mr. Keener. IU 13, Mr. Maris.
Yeah, nothing new other than the IU is struggling with filling support staff, and they're looking at ways to be creative to get more support staff, which is an ongoing problem, but nothing new other than that.
Thank you very much. Enfield Area Rec Commission, Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Wagner.
There are a lot of opportunities this fall for dance classes, the one that caught my eye because my granddaughters do dance. But lots of opportunities for our children for extracurricular activities. Look on the HARC or the Hempfield Recreation Center website for more information. These are really good programs offered for our kids. Thank you.
Safety and Security, Mr. Garber.
Nothing new to report.
Thank you, Mr. Garber. PSBA Liaison, Mr. Wolgemuth.
I don't have a whole lot to add, but you'll notice in the board news there were some updates, and I just want to highlight the fact that the conference is coming up at the Kalahari Resort, October 15th through the 17th. I am unable to attend, but if any of you are interested in attending, please let Mike or Mr. Bermersky and or Mrs. Strybos, did I say that correctly? Know if you're interested in going. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Wolgemuth. Finance, Mr. Mauer is unable to be here tonight. I believe Mr. Donato is prepared to,
Buildings and grounds first.
I'm sorry,
It's okay.
Buildings and Grounds.
Okay.
Mr. Maris, I just tried playing
Yes,
it correctly.
Our last Buildings and Grounds, we didn't, Mrs. James gave an update on summer projects and basically high level, everything went well. Costs and everything in control and a lot of paving projects and things went well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Maris. I'm struggling because I need glasses to read the screen, but then when I have them up here, everything's blurred. So it's been great turning 50 years old. Now it's your turn, Mr. Donato.
For finance, we approved the minutes. The big two things were we had a food service update with goals and things for this current school year we're in. I was gonna say the upcoming school year, but we're actually in it. And the other thing is we talked to our bond advisor who's here tonight. We're going to approve a bond issue a little later. They gave a presentation on financial planning for upcoming when we get the results of the feasibility study and decide where to move on. And we will be doing some borrowing, which we'll be approving the bond a little later in this. And I believe our next meeting is the 20 for Buildings and Grounds and Finances. That I don't have the date of. Thank you, 26 for both of those. And questions from anyone? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bard.
Thank you, Mr. Donato, because I just let you know that I need you to do that about 2 hours ago. Policy, Personnel, Legal, Mr. Keener.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. I would note that the education and program portion of the meeting was deferred. Mrs. Johnson, do you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. So the Policy, Personnel, and Legal Committee met on August 17th. There were several policies referred to. There were actually a couple policies referred to second reading, which we will be voting on shortly. As a reminder, whenever we have de minimis or de minimis updates to policies, or when policies are simply technically revised without substantive change, it is our procedure to move them directly to a second reading. So we did that with 113.3, 115, 116, and then policies 216.1, 251 and were referred to first reading. 616 was also referred to directly to second reading. We then had a discussion about the district's social media accounts, have a very helpful, engaging discussion about how we wish to handle those accounts, and the consensus of the board was that the district social media accounts are now to be considered closed forums. And that's all that I have.
I'm sorry, Mr. Keener. I do want to add that our next meeting is next Thursday on the 21st at 5 o'clock. Mr. Dandridge is going to give us an update on all of the curriculum information and any other training, etc. I don't think there's any data that's going to be presented at this time. That's coming in October after first evaluations. I know a lot of you are interested in that. So it's at 5 o'clock on the 21st.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson, and I guess effective with next week's meeting, we'll be back to the standard format where the two committees will be combined.
Unless we don't have anything going on, which is probably not ever gonna happen.
What was that, Mrs. Johnson?
Unless we don't have anything going on, but that probably will not happen until maybe next summer,
Maybe,
maybe.
maybe.
Also, Mr. Keenan, I'd like to elaborate on the social media discussion we had. Starting the 25th is our new communications director, Kelly Burkholder, which we're very lucky to get her. She 22 years at SDOL and has been a Hempfield resident the whole time. So she finally came home to be here. And she has some strategies on how we might change how that all works. So she's going to be bringing us some possibilities on how to manage the social media without having it just absolutely closed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next is looking for a motion to approve personnel action items 9A 1 through 10 as presented.
Mr. Barb, I would ask that item 9A 1D be removed and voted on, discussed and voted on separately. The resignation of Aaron Hartnett
Okay.
in light of recently received information.
Can you say where that is again? I just wanna-
And other than that, with the exception of item 1D, so moved.
So the exception was section 9.
It's the one we're in.
Oh, it's the
Personnel
first-
actions,
First page.
1,
Okay, thank you.
retirement, D.
Okay, thank you.
So am I able to just say, can I have a motion to approve?
We haven't had a motion.
We had to have a
yet.
motion to approve yet.
We have to have a motion.
No,
first.
I made the motion with everything except 9A 1D.
Okay. Can I have a second for that?
A second.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Okay, any discussion on the items that we are going to approve that's not been taken out? Okay, all in favor? Mr. Wagner and Mr. Garber?
In favor?
In favor?
Motion passes 8-0. Mr. Keener. So,
Motion.
So before I make a motion, I guess my thought is, and I apologize, I only now saw this item on here when we sat down and saw this list. Since we are in a public session, I will be circumspect in my remarks. The board received information shortly before the meeting around the circumstances of this resignation. And given the tenure of the employee involved, it may behoove the board to defer action on accepting the resignation until a future time.
Which is this B or D?
D.
D.
B,
D is a dog.
D is in dog, okay.
D.
Mr. Walker, you want to?
Yeah, thank you. If there's any discussion on this item in particular, we should break to executive session for that.
Yeah. Agreed.
So then do we just ask for a motion to,
I would make a motion to table item 1D to next Thursday's joint policy, personnel, legal, education, and programs meeting.
thank you. Second?
Hey, just one question. Would it be better to table it till the buildings and grounds so there is time for
That would be
discussion?
fine. That would be fine too.
I'm just thinking to be available for a week too.
Do you need to amend
Very
your
well.
motion?
I amend my motion to table item 9A 1D to the joint buildings and grounds finance meeting, which Mrs. Freiberg,
26th.
when will that be?
The 26.
On September 26th.
I'll second
Thank you, Mr. Donato. And I don't need discussion, correct? Okay. So all in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That was 2 yeses.
That's 7
Mhm.
and opposed, 1 opposed. Moving on to financial action items. Motion to approve items 10B through 10G is presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Donato. Need a second.
Miss,
Before we go on,
can we pull the bond separately, please? No.
okay.
F.
I'll change my motion to approve items B through E and J, and we do F separately. That satisfactory? I changed, my motion is we approve items B through E and G, and F we'll vote on separately. I guess we need a second.
Okay, can I have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wagamuth. So, Mr. Walker, what do I do with F now?
We got to
If there's
vote.
any discussion, then I'll vote.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion in the second? All in favor? Mr. Garber, and
In favor.
In favor.
motion carries 8-0. Okay. Okay, so we're back at,
Now we need to do the bond.
I
Yeah,
make a
yeah.
motion to approve item F, the bond issue.
Second.
okay, any discussion? That's what we're waiting for.
I would also ask if we could have a roll call vote on this one.
Okay. Mrs. Hall, will you keep track of the roll call? I do.
That's right, I will.
I'm sorry, real quick, can we, what are we roll calling? What are we doing? I'm sorry, I cut out there for just a second.
I share Mr. Wagner's question. I'm not sure where we are either.
It's the $15 million bond that was presented to us the last Buildings and Ground Finance meeting. I think we were all in favor of it at that time. It's a pretty much a win-win. That's why we have these guys here. If there's any questions, I assume we can ask them.
correct.
Does anybody want them to give a quick summary of what this is about?
I don't think it's a bad idea, Mr. Maris.
Go ahead.
I do recall the discussion. I do recall, overwhelmingly, we were overwhelmingly in favor of this, but I want to make sure that we can understand this more fully tonight.
Thank you very much. My name is Ken Phillips and John Fry. Two partners, Lou Verdelli and Lauren Stadel, were here on August 29th to review with you with the master project plan in our discussions with Mrs. Hall and Mr. Burmirsky over the last several months. And the value of getting the seed money for these projects because of the ability to not only use those for costs, but also the ability to invest those proceeds at a higher number. And so Mr. Walker, as bond counsel and solicitor, has prepared the resolution this evening for up to $15 million. The actual resolution, I believe, reads 18 million. which is strictly a filing thing with the state of Pennsylvania. We only plan on issuing 15 million or less. With your permission, we would go ahead and proceed with this after this discussion. But again, the purpose is to provide you funds toward your larger capital projects over the next couple of years to take advantage of current interest rate environments, which are both favorable from borrowing and from investing. And that's really the purpose for the meeting this evening. Would love to answer any questions that you may have from the August meeting several weeks ago. And we're here to do that. And want to thank Mr. Walker and his team for getting the material together, and also for your administration for the due diligence that they have put forth for this project.
Just a clarification, I think you answered it at the beginning of the resolution. It says 18 million, and that's simply because the state
Right.
requires that, but
Yeah.
because we had agreed.
It's called a
to-
maximum parameters contract. Whatever is not used will be written off with the state. We just try to give us that with the not knowing how we're going to market the bonds. It gives us flexibility. And it's a standard thing we've done with the district for the last 20+ years.
Just that, if I remember from the discussion, the 15 million is the upper figure
Yep.
that when we invest it, we don't have
Correct.
to pay
Correct,
we
Mr.
get the
Donato.
full advantage of the interest.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Can you please outline any, if any, risks or downsides to this move?
I don't see there's any risk or downsides. We are getting money toward the master plan. We are being able to utilize those funds under IRS law for the next 3 years, and to basically be able to make some money in those monies until we actually spend them for engineering and architectural and so on. We haven't had this opportunity in about 15 years with where, rates have been at zero. We've taken advantage of that, as you know, with refundings and things of that nature. The district has always been very good at taking advantage of those fiscal responsibilities. So I don't really see any risk at all with this.
I do have one other question. What would happen if in the time between we do this and it actually is finalized, if interest, we're taking advantage now because, even just going for a simple thing, a savings account is paying a lot more interest than before this. But what happens if in the next 2 months, interest rates, I don't see it happening, but if they would start dropping by the time this,
Sure.
I mean, it means,
That's a really good question.
I guess part of it means we won't be paying as much interest to
Right.
get it.
I do have to applaud the board. Our original timeline was sometime in October. I think you advanced it, which makes
Right.
perfect
Yes.
sense, to be honest with you. The Fed meets again in September and November. More than likely, in our opinion, they're going to be going up at least another quarter. So I think the chances of that happening are probably slim, but it's always a possibility. I do think with the expeditious manner that the board has addressed this is a proper thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Phillips and Mr. Fry, I want to thank you both for coming out here to give us an opportunity to drill down on it. I do want to just mention to the people that the residents that are here that weren't here at the last meeting, we did have a good presentation and a lot of productive conversation, just to make sure everyone's aware that we weren't voting on this without proper information. But thank you for giving us that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Bart. Any other additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Maris,
Yes.
Mr. Bard,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Donato,
Yes.
Mr. Wobblemuth,
Yes.
Mr. Keener,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
and Mr. Garber.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to buildings and grounds, there is nothing to report on. Approval of other action items. Thank you, Mr. Phillips and Fry again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve other action items 12B through 12I as presented.
Second, you're so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mears.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Donato. Any discussion on anything? All in favor?
In favor?
Aye.
Was that a yes, Mr. Garber?
Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Motion carries 8-0. Okay, that concludes the meeting. Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We have Jay.
Jay.
There's a financial SBA.
Yeah, I apologize, everyone. Motion to approve the 2024 slate of candidates for PSBA.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Donato. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any discussion?
Only if, does Mr. Walker have any information about these people?
No, I don't have any recommendations one way or another. I have no concerns with the list either.
Thank you. Mr. Keener, do you have anything to add?
No,
Okay,
I was just asking a question.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, for that information.
Okay, all in favor?
In favor?
In favor.
Thank you. Motion carries 8-0. And we'll try this again. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Maris.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
You're welcome.
We do. It's been a rough night.